from one presentation to another. Whoever started recording this, thank you, because I totally forgot and I appreciate it. Nearly 30% of conference attendees are students. And I think that's significant for us as students because there's always plenty of students there who are having the exact same concerns and troubles and excitement and new beginnings that you're all having. AERA is a big organization. Most conferences are a lot smaller than AERA. So if you have a specialty field that you want to present in after you get your courage up to start submitting to a smaller conference, you will discover that AERA by far exceeds whatever volume of people, subjects, and structural kind of bureaucratic entities that any other conference will have. For example, AERA is organized into 12 divisions, which are labeled A through L. One of the divisions that you're probably going to be interested in is Division K, which is teachers and teacher education. Within Division K, there are, I think, 13 sections that are very specific to different elements of teachers and teacher education. Within that, I looked at them today. One of the sections alone had over 133 presentations last year. So you can do the math on however many presentations that might equate to. There are also 152 special interest groups that are structured within AERA. And these run the gamut from studying Foucault to the lives of teachers to John Dewey and everything in between, science education, TESOL. I mean, come up with a topic, it'll be there. And you might submit to any one of those. I encourage you all to go to the aera.net website and just do a search of the SIGs, special interest groups, and see if there's anything in there that you might be interested in.
Matt, can you put the link in the chat?
Yeah, let me just copy it off of here. Oops. Actually, could somebody else do that? It's aera.net, and I'll just keep going.
You're the only one who can.
Am I the only one? Well, guess what? You all just got special permission.
I don't think we can access your screen.
No, hold on.
Oops.
There, can everybody chat?
Can everybody chat?
No, in the chat function.
Yes, we can all
Somebody
chat.
can chat. Can you say yes?
Yeah.
Yes, we can chat.
Would somebody mind putting the aera.net link in there? Here, I'll do it.
It's just, it can be hard to find the call, which is why I was, or maybe you can put it in at the end.
There you go. So feel free to peruse that. All right. Okay. So, so this year, as I mentioned earlier, the submission deadline is July 12th. So that's for an April conference. And so if you're thinking about submitting to AERA for this coming year, for 2022, the time is now to start thinking about what you want to do. Now, AERA wants to make it as easy as possible for you to understand what is required. And so they give very detailed information about what needs to go into any submission. And this doesn't matter who you are, you have to adhere to these rules. I can speak very clearly that people who don't adhere to these rules are automatically eliminated from consideration at the AERA level. It won't even get to the local review level. So please keep that in mind. And the rules are, for example, for a paper submission, they must be in the form of a complete narrative paper. Doesn't have to be in its final form, but the form that you submit must be complete. The limits are set for what the title can be for the abstract and for the total volume of the paper. So in this case, it's 15 words for a title, 120 words for the abstract, 2,000 words or fewer for the paper. and it must be de-identified. I can tell you, having submitted twice to AERA, it's difficult when you're writing about the subject that you want to write about to fit it into the 2,000 words. And I'm sure that you'll experience that same thing, but it's a really good practice and it's there for a reason. So for those of you who've gotten a chance to look at the call for submissions that I just put the link up for, you'll note that it's long and descriptive, and it centers around the topic of cultivating equitable education systems for the 21st century. Every year, there will be a theme that the guidance, the leadership at ARA puts forward to set the tone for what that conference is going to be that year. And this is the one for 2022. It's, in my experience, and maybe we'll share more of this as we go forward, it's best to write something that fits into that theme. It makes sense for what the conference is trying to do, and it gives you a better chance of impressing the people who are reviewing your papers. Okay, so that's the background of the conference and how it basically works. As far as submissions, with the ARA, there's two forms of submissions that you can do, and you propose this in your submission proposal. There's papers and there's sessions. Within the paper groups, there's three types. There's the paper presentation, where it's you standing up there at a podium presenting your paper. The roundtable discussion, where it's you and 4 or 5 other people having basically a panel discussion about what's happening in front of an audience and then doing a Q&A session. And then there's a poster session where you're presenting a poster. If it's in person, you build your poster. If it's online, they have a system to do it. Now, you may say that you want to present a paper and you may not get to present a paper. Instead, somebody may say, well, no, we're going to put you in a roundtable discussion, or no, well, we want you to create that as a poster. That may very well happen. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Sessions wise, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different types of sessions that one can propose. Now, I've never presented or proposed a session. Carol, have you? Could you give 2 seconds on that?
Yeah, I mean, I love these because it's the kind of presentation I did most of, especially in the beginning, because it allows you to round up people you really like and who have a shared interest. And you say, let's do a session focused on, I don't know, like first generation college writers, for example. And you find 4 people or 3 besides you who are interested in writing about that from their own particular point of view. And you each submit, I think it's just 500 words, because the proposal itself has to still fit within a word limit, maybe 2,500. And you craft a symposium. And those are the sessions that when I go to AERA, I'm most interested in, because the people have really thought about it. They have a focus, and the whole session will be deliberate. With the other paper presentations, the organizers put you together because it seems like your papers are related. But with a symposium, they're related intentionally, and they just tend to be stronger.
And thank you, Carol. And you guys, when you work through your submission, you can look at the details of how AERA describes all these as well. So, and the advice I would give, and probably folks would back me up on this, is stick to their description. So whatever they're asking for, make sure you give it to them. So I talked about with the paper proposal, and this fits the same for the session proposal. You can submit, as we talked earlier, to either the division or the SIG, or any elements that are accepting submissions within AERA. But I just want to talk a little bit about what happens once you send that submission in, okay? So you'll send it in via the AERA system. It's basically, filling out your information and then attaching a document, a de-identified document. That then goes to into the system and notifies the person who is the program chair, and whatever committee that program chair has selected to review the papers. Earlier in the year, as a matter of fact, it's happening right now. volunteer reviewers are drawn from the membership of any SIG or division before any submissions are received. So that is, like I said, happening right now. As a matter of fact, I think the expiration or the end date for volunteering for that is this coming week. Every submission that is received that fits the parameters, so it fits the word guidelines, it fits the title guidelines, it fits the form guidelines, all of that. Not necessarily content, but just the rules of what a submission must look like. Every one of them is assigned to at least three of the reviewers, these volunteer reviewers. So every submission is looked at by at least 3 people and is graded based on a rubric on a 5-point scale. It is a blind review process. The reviewers don't know the authors and the authors don't know the reviewers. No one ever knows who did the work of reviewing each person's paper. The reviewers also, besides giving a score, have the opportunity to kind of narrate their thoughts for the author. So if you're accepted, you can count on some positive feedback and some negative feedback. And if you're not accepted, you can count on some positive feedback and negative feedback. So any way you cut it, it's a good exercise for beginning writers and for people who are trying to get used to this process of academic writing and publishing. I will tell you, there is just as much chance that a person who has 20 years of experience writing and submitting to conferences won't get accepted as there is for somebody who's doing it the first shot out the gate. Now, it's obviously totally true that somebody with more experience is going to be more practiced, but that doesn't mean that whatever they've written that year is going to pass muster. So don't let the fact that you're going up against professors and experienced people who've published in a lot of places, don't let that sway you from submitting your best work. Get it in there, try it. You can't learn if you don't try, and this is all about the learning. And if you can get through the process and get to present as well, all the more better, okay? So selections. The number of submissions that are actually selected to be presented is not in the control of the people who are doing the selecting. So what I mean when I say that is AERA is the final decider about how many submissions every SIG, every division gets to have presented. So I believe the metric that they use is based on the total number of submissions they receive. But in the end, they're only going to get to present or to accept a certain percentage of submissions. And so that top tier, let's call it 37% or 42%, I think is what it was last year, is the grouping that will get to be presented in any given division, any given SIG. And that's typically based on a couple of factors, not the least of which is the numeric scoring that occurs. Okay. And then there's another stage of presenting, which is the way that this division or the SIG is able to use those submissions. So the people in the division or the SIG will then decide, well, this person's going to present as a paper, or this person's going to present as a poster, or this person's going to present as a roundtable discussion, for example. You may have wanted to put a poster in, and they may want you to do a roundtable. You may want to do a paper presentation and they may tell you to do a poster. It's just the way that things shake out, okay? So that's the basics of how the conference works and how submissions work.
Leah is here.
Great, and Leah got here just in time. I went way over. I was supposed to stop at 6:15. So let's jump to Leah, and Leah's gonna give you a brief 5-minute take on her experience presenting at AERA, and then Ginny is going to go, and then I'm going to go, and yeah, we'll take it from there. Leah, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can.
All right, cool.
Take it away.
So I presented, I guess, when we were in New York City, because that felt like very accessible to me, and I didn't have to worry about trying to fund the travel. So I think that's a consideration for everyone. It's just kind of how to get there. And so this year I actually decided to just present at NARST because it was online and it's a smaller community and I know some of the folks. So if you have a discipline, like Matt was saying, that you're, that you're focusing on, there's specific conferences for, I think, most of our specialty areas, which is kind of crazy when you start thinking about it. So I ended up being asked to do a roundtable, which I honestly, like, I wish this existed when I was getting ready to do my roundtable because I did not know what I was getting myself into. So at the roundtable, you sit at a table with like 10 people, and it was not as awesome as I had wished it was. So I do not think I would do a roundtable again if they asked me to do one. I think I would choose to do a poster. I felt like the only people who were at the roundtable were the other presenters, and people were not very good listeners. They did not ask questions that would have been helpful for me. And honestly, I also think that I chose the wrong, I guess, SIG to present within. I learned a lot by presenting within the SIG, and I ended up following that those folks at that conference a lot. And it really did shape the way that I've thought about my own work. So I really appreciated it. However, it would have been nice to have a tiny heads up before I presented about their kind of worldview in terms of my work versus how they saw science education. I'm happy to explain more on that, but I don't think anyone else here is going towards science ed and needs to worry about like that side of yeah, anyway. So that's that. And, it was great. I mean, I really enjoyed ARA. I think I'm going to try to go next year. I don't know, actually, never mind. Now that I thought about California, I don't think I can do that. Maybe when it comes back closer. I just think, yeah, it's too hard.
Chicago in 2
guys.
years. So.
Oh, that's still far. I don't know. Maybe I'll have a real job by then. I mean, like I have a teaching job, but not like an academic teaching job. Yeah, I teach middle school. They look at me like I have 4 heads when I say I need to take off to present at a conference. They're like, okay, what are you doing? So I don't know. Is that helpful? Is there more you want me to say?
No, I think that's great for now. And of course, we were going to have a Q&A after everyone kind of gives their 5 minutes. So totally fine. Okay. Jenny, you want to talk a little bit about your presenting experience at ARA or anywhere?
Yeah, sure. I love to. Actually, Leah, we was a co-worker 2 years ago. Actually, our co-work with the Dr. Zhang's lab members was presented in the ARA like 2 years ago. So, actually, I would like to show the process of my submitting and presenting at the 2 conferences before. So, can I share my screen a little bit, shortly?
Sorry, let me fix that for you. There you go.
Okay, let me try. So, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
So I'm Jenny in 5th grade of ETAP doctoral program, and actually since 2018 I've been presenting at the ARA conferences like 5 times, and I just briefly talk about the first 2 experiences to share about how I prepared for the presentations before. So the first one was in 2018 with Dr. Zhang, and it was paper presentation in Division C, Learning and Instruction. So as you know, we need to prepare for the proposal like some months ago or a year ago, before the presentation event. So at the time, I had to analyze the data and write my paper in summer 2017. And I actually submitted a paper to a roundtable session, but in November, I heard the news that my paper was accepted to a paper session entitled New Directions in Learning Analytics and Assessment. And then I got some reviews from the reviewers, and I could update the paper. And I was asked to upload the full paper to the all academic system, which is the online website of the ARA. And then finally in April, I delivered a presentation, and I was a fifth presenter out of 6 presenting teams in the session. And actually, the presentation time is very short in ARM. So our presentation was allocated like 10 minutes only. So we spent 10 minutes at the time. And the second presentation was with Dr. Xia, and it was in the paper presentation in SEEK, Online Teaching and Learning. And actually, it was my final paper of ETAP 723 class. And there was only 2, students, including me, in the senior class at the time. So I had really, close interactions with, my peer and also Dr. Xia, who taught this class. So I thought about, improving my final paper to present at the ARA. So we prepared together, with Dr. Xia, and I improved my paper based on his feedback. And I submitted a paper to paper session SEEK in summer. And then the last, the rest of the procedure is same as the previous ones. And then I would like to just show you a brief criteria that you will see as well. Actually, this is the criteria of the reviewing the submitted papers. So I would really like to recommend you considering of these items of the criteria when you prepare for a proposal, because the reviewers will be evaluate your paper based on this one. So you need to think about the objectives and purposes, and also theoretical framework, methods, and the data sources, and the evidence of it, and also result, and how significant it is, to the scholastic significance. So 3 or 4 reviewers will, assess your papers, and then I really, encourage you to, improve your, previous final papers, or some other research papers that you have now, and improve it, based on, this format of criteria. So this is all, and I would like to share more in Q&A session.
Thanks, Ginny. That's terrific. And thank you for sharing that matrix up there. That is, that's the scoring that I was talking about earlier. So great advice, Ginny. Okay, so my name is Matt Livingston, as you all know. I presented at AERA twice, although the first time, it was at AERA technically, but I was part of what's known as the Emerging Scholars Program within the John Dewey Society. And so I wrote a paper for them and was accepted as an emerging scholar. But they have this thing where they hold their meeting during the AERA meeting. So you have to be at the AERA meeting to go to their meeting, but they're not technically AERA anyway. You may find that in your field of expertise as well, that there are conferences within conferences, or places that you can go, or places that you can practice your emerging scholar skills, even if it's not in a structured organization like the one that I was a part of. And so that was in Toronto in 2019. And I actually repurposed a paper that I wrote for an educational philosophy class that I took in the educational leadership department. I repurposed that paper, and it worked out darn well. And then I presented this past year in the 2021 conference. And I presented in the Lives of Teachers SIG. And just a word about what that was. So I decided that, like many of you on this call, that I needed to get my act together. At the beginning of the summer, I was like, I need to get out there and present at a conference. And I had my idea. I knew what I wanted to write about. I started writing. I looked at the call for submissions. I said, okay, how does what I want to write about fit into this call for submissions? And I found a way to make it work, and it worked really well. And then I started shopping for a SIG. And I discovered that the lives of teachers were looking for things that I wanted to talk about. And because if you go into different SIGs, they'll tell you what they're interested in. And I said, these are the people that I want to talk to. This is what they want to hear. I need to make sure that my paper reflects the things that they want to hear. At the same time, of course, talking about what I want to talk about. So I wrote a paper towards them, to them, for them, with the intention of helping them know, helping them understand that what I was interested in is what they're interested in too. And my experience was successful. I didn't just go in there with blinders on, say, this is what I want to talk about, this is all I'm going to do. I found an audience that wanted to hear what I wanted to say. And I made sure that they knew that I wanted to talk to them about the things that they were interested in. And it worked. And so if I could give you one piece of advice, it would be speak to your audience. Yeah. And so that's my experience. Carol, you want to pick it up?
Sure. So I think because you've covered a lot of it, all of you, I'm just going to talk about why you should do this. I will say that it's changed, I think, a lot because of COVID. They've discovered what you can do online. So poster sessions are no longer, you can't bring your poster with you. It's only online. So you have to present your stuff online. So, and it's kind of cool what you can do. The system that they've got allows for hyperlinks and videos, and it's just a lot more complex and interesting than it used to be. So there's that. Roundtables, I had have had different experiences than Leah. I've had a blast at roundtables where people who were good listeners and who asked great questions, and it was a real conversation. And when you do a paper presentation, that's a lot harder. You know, you're a panel of people behind a table, there's an audience, there's a chair that runs the discussion, and a few people get to ask questions, and then you have your conversation after the session's over and people are coming up to you and wanting to talk. But the roundtables I kind of like because they're relaxed in a way that the paper sessions aren't. I've already talked about the symposium and how great I think that can be as a way to launch your AERA career. But I would say start going now. Make sure that you're already a member of AERA. It's the biggest and most varied source for you. And it has the people who will be useful to you in your career. They're there. They're for you to meet. And they will be useful. I mean, I'm in the process of going up for full professor right now. And every single person who wrote me a letter was somebody I met at AERA. You know, they don't know me really well because that's not allowed, but they are people who know my work because I was at AERA to present it. And because I was at AERA, I was asked to be an associate editor of a journal, and got to know people that way. You can go to local conferences, which are great, like NERA, which is the New England Research Association. It's a great place to go, but it doesn't provide you with the breadth of contacts that you will get when you go to a national conference. It's an international conference, so people from all over the world are part of this. And my numbers are a little bit bigger than yours, Matt. My understanding is that there are 35,000 members, and regularly 20 to 25,000 people go to the conference. So it's big, but it's a blast. You can find everything you want. I would recommend going with a buddy, at least one, because it's a lot to navigate. You know, consult with your advisor who knows how to navigate AERA, get some advice before you go. All the big names that you know, the authors that you love and would love to see in person, they will be there. Not the dead ones, obviously, but the ones that are still living and haven't retired, they will be there. You know, Deborah Ball is still very active, and all of you who are in 720 read Nasir's, the political context of teaching. Nasir is president of AERA this year. She'll have an address. She'll be there. San Diego is beautiful and it'll be beautiful in the spring. You can share a house and a hotel room. I mean, I used to share hotel rooms with 4 other people. You know, there are ways to make it work. And these days with Airbnb, you can make things affordable. You know, the airfare is the airfare. Adele put up links for professional development money. I think there may be some AERA help as well for travel grants. Travel grants are something that, you know, every graduate student applies for and usually gets either through your department or through your school or through the university or through the organization. So don't be shy about that. And if you don't have something to present, just go, just to be exposed to this professional world. And these are the, you know, my best professional friends I met at AERA who have been really important people in my life, not just professionally, but personally. So graduate school is the first place that all of that happens. And then the place where that continues is through conferences. So that's what I'll say for now.
Thank you, Carol. I just want to add one thing to also when you talk about grants and all those other things, keep in mind for everybody on this call, except for Carol, because she's already made her choice for what her career is going to be. For those of you who are interested in moving into academia, you know, moving into that life of working in higher education, working in research, writing, teaching, all of this is practice for that. So even when you're filling out the $750 travel grant application with your department and writing out your narrative of why it's important to you and attaching your resume and all that, that's all practice for what the next big $50,000, $150,000, $1 million grant is going to look like. It's all designed to help us get into this rhythm and mode of practicing writing what we're thinking, going to people to make sure we find funding, and going through all that rigmarole to make sure that we can find the money to do the work that's important to us. And it's all of this is practice for that. So just keep that in mind. There's a purpose to it
Also,
all.
when it comes to things like tenure, to have AERA on your list of presentations is a big deal. You know, that will be like publishing in a top tier journal. So it's a good thing to have to collect.
It gives me goosebumps, Carol. Thanks. So let's take questions. I don't know how we're going to do this. If people want to raise their hands, and Carol, could you watch the second page and I'll watch the first page and we'll just call out people who have their hands up?
I think I have everybody on my screen.
You do? Okay. Tom, it looks like you're the first one I see. So
Yeah.
fire away.
I've got a couple of questions actually. So the first one was, you know, you're saying about engaging your audience. Does that mean like telling people that you're going to present like beforehand and inviting them to it? Or did you mean when you were talking, you're actually trying to talk to them during the presentation?
You're talking about when I said I'm writing to my audience?
I think it was about writing the proposal.
It was my proposal, right? Yeah. So what I did is in my proposal, I actually looked at what the call for submissions was. And I used that language. I said, this is why, you know, this is what I'm talking about. And this is why the role that we as teachers play is important. And this is how it's important. So I used that language and I reflected back to them. And then I looked at what the Lives of Teachers SIG said was important to them in their little narrative on the AERA website. And they talked about how this is important, that's important, this is what we're interested in learning, this is what we're guiding people to. And I found a way to build that in, obviously within the structure of my beliefs and what I was writing about. But I was like, hey, I mean, if I believe it and they believe it, I ought to let them know that I'm the kind of guy that they want talking to them.
Right, yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, sorry, thanks for that, but I thought you meant that you were like inviting people to come and watch you.
No.
You mean,
I mean, you can do that if you know that they're going to be at the conference.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the second one was a similar type of question. I think it was Leah. Was you're saying about the listeners? Was that other people on the panel, or was it the people in the audience?
Well, so for my roundtable, there wasn't actually anyone there besides the other presenters. And I think if I had done my due diligence, which Matt did, to figure out what SIG I fit into at the time better, I think I would have had a more collegial kind of group.
Right.
I also think, look, a lot of us that go to these things, we're new researchers, right? We're graduate students. We're a little over eager to hear ourselves. And we think what we're doing is super important. And so, you know, I always try to like push myself to make sure that I'm paying attention to who's talking so I can ask them a question for them, not just for me. But I think there's a lot of people that that's not what they're going to AERA for. And I'm not always good at, I don't know, there's always the kid that like wants the teacher to like them because they're, you know, like there's that kid, right? And I just feel like when you're surrounded by those kids, I'm like, you know what, go for it, you guys. I'm just gonna sit here. So that's just me though. Like I'm just, I was intimidated, I think, by, you know, they were like super dressed up and like super eager and like very like, and I was like, wow, I thought this was a round table. Like I was expecting what Carol had mentioned, you know, where we could all just like talk and like get feedback and like get responses from each other. And I did not, I felt like it was a little too judgy for me, that round table. But I've been to other round tables that have been super fun at other conferences. So I think it's kind of like luck of the draw. And
sometimes you will have a discussant who will facilitate the conversation.
oh, I did. He was pretty intense himself.
Yeah, well, you didn't have good luck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Thanks,
It's-
Leland.
It's quite funny because like you're saying that there was like no one else there, and it's like, which proves that when they were talking, they're actually just even more talking to themselves rather than anyone else that was listening. Then the final thing that I was going to ask is, if you've got two ideas, can you submit to two different places, or can you only submit once?
So you're only allowed, you'll see this when you read the rules. You're only allowed to submit 2 submissions in total to AERA. And you can only submit each one to one place. So if you need to pick your SIG or division wisely.
But
Because
you
you're
can
only
be a
allowed to submit-
co-author. Like you could get somebody else to be first author and then you can co-author.
That's true.
That's a good strategy. So I could do 2 by myself and then co-author a third or a fourth. Like actually, you could do as many as you like that.
Well, you can't submit the same paper though.
No.
Right.
Great.
So you can only submit any paper, whether it's 1 author, 2 authors, 10 authors, to one place, division SIG, whatever it is.
Yeah, but if you've got, say for example, you've got 2 papers that you want to do, you could do 2 in 2 different
Yeah.
places.
Different SIGs, yeah. But you're not, as a single author, you can't present more than 1, or you can't submit more than 1. I mean, sorry, more than 2.
Okay, great. Thanks very much.
And you'll see that it's all written out in the rules. You'll see it all in the submission rules, on that link.
Yeah, I'll read those. Thanks.
Other questions?
I wanted to find out, is there any significant difference between the various types of presentations, i.e. poster, paper, roundtable? What is the difference?
The round table is, you come with, it's the same, you come with the same thing that you would go to a paper presentation with, which is like your PowerPoint, or maybe just handouts. Since you're all around a table, you won't necessarily need to have a screen. Give people handouts, speak from your handout. The speaking part is different. So it's just more casual because you're speaking directly to the people that you're looking at rather than a formal behind the table presentation. A poster is going to be different because, and you can go up and look at the posters if you're a member. Go up and look at the posters from this year, and you'll see all the different ways that it's like a screen full of images and options. They're really quite involved, and some of them are fantastic. But that, when you do a poster, I honestly don't know, Eugene, how that's working now. I think you're there, you're available somehow. And if somebody wants to talk to you, they can, but they could also, go through your whole screen without saying anything to you.
Yeah, I just, at a different conference this year, it's called SIGSE, which is for computer science education. I presented a poster that was with an online postering program. Like, we were required to use it. And it's just like Carol described. You upload it, your documentation into it, and people can go through it step by step. And it's kind of like a guided, narrated, if you want it to be, it can be a narrated discussion, one-sided discussion where people are just watching it. Not quite like a YouTube video, because they can select the places where they want to go, but it incorporates all those kind of interactive video elements if you want it to. Or it could be as simple as a kind of a static PowerPoint. Whatever depth you want to go to with it is what's available. It requires a different skill set than people have for 100 years been doing at these poster sessions, where they're literally pasting things onto a board, doing a full video interpretation of your work that has depth and breadth to it is so different than just, plopping it on a board. So I think it's required a lot of people to develop a new skill set, and some of us are good at it. Some of us are not. And some of us need to build our skills. So
I had a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Is conference presentation, right, different from the paper being published, i.e. like the one that we read and those kind of, what is the difference?
So the conference paper is like a draft. I mean, what conferences are good for is feedback.
Okay.
Feedback and connections.
Okay.
Right. They also have something called journal, meet the journal or something like that. Anyway, it goes over a couple of days, and you can talk to the editors of the journal and, pitch your idea for an article. They can give you feedback on the spot. They know who you are. You have like a relationship that you've already established, within that 15-minute meeting, so that when you submit, they'll know, oh yeah, that's Eugene. Yeah, he told me about this idea. And they can also give you feedback on, what would need to happen for you to be considered.
Sure. Thank you, Prof. And thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
Lori has her hand up.
So I have a question, follow-up question for Eugene questions. So when you get feedback from the conference, does it mean that it is possible for us to write a full paper and publish it on the other side? Because we just published a proceeding in this conference, or should we change the title or something like that? Thank you.
You don't need to change the title. Yeah, this is like on your way to publishing in a journal. So when you present your paper at AERA, you first get feedback on your proposal, right? And then if you're accepted and present, then you'll get feedback at the conference. And then based on all of that feedback, including maybe going to the journal and talking to the editor, then you redraft it and submit it to a journal. And again, the journal will give you feedback. And nobody gets accepted the first time they submit to a journal. It's always a revise and resubmit. So by the time you finally publish your paper, it's going to look a lot different than that proposal that you originally submitted. But that's the process.
Right. Adding to Dr. Carroll's comments, I would like to mention this one. The ARA paper with Dr. Shreya that I delivered before, it was eventually published in a online learning journal. So this is kind of process. So your presentation at the ARA is not the ultimate goal of your research, and but it's just in the middle of your improvement. So I really encourage you to present and then try presenting at the area first and get, as Dr. Rogers said, get the feedbacks from the reviewers and improve it, to a, updated to, as a final version of the ARA conference, and then you will get some more feedbacks and opinions from other scholars at the conference on the spot, and then use it feedback wisely to improve it more and publish it in some journals. Or also one of my tips is to use the feedback to improve your research to be used in a milestone, of the doctoral program. For example, the first presentation that I collaborated with Dr. Zhang at the ARA, that was eventually becoming my a pilot study, which is the second milestone of doctoral program. So I really would like to encourage you think about this is the process of advancing your research, and then use it in some other ways.
Thanks, Jenny. I just want to jump in real quick and to do two things. We are just 5 minutes out from 7 o'clock, but I have a feeling this conversation can go past 7. So I'm just going to leave that open. Anybody who needs to go at 7, of course, you can feel free to leave, but I'm going to keep this open so we can keep talking if that's what you wish. I also want to introduce Marzi Dagan. Marzi, welcome. Marzi, I'm confused about your status, Marzi, because I know you as an ETAP doctoral student, and now I know you're in educational psychology. So I'm just really confused, and maybe you could provide clarity for all of us. But Marzi's also going to show us an example of a poster. So thank you, Marzi.
Hi, everyone. It's very nice being here today, and it's very nice seeing all your beautiful faces today. Actually, I've been to ETAP department for 4 academic years, and I started as a doctoral student in curriculum instruction, but then I ended up getting my second master's degree from ETAP department in curriculum development and instructional technology, and I switched to EdPsych department and become a PhD student there. So basically, I transferred my credits from ETAP to EdPsych, and I educational psychology and research methodology PhD program, and now my focus is on statistics. And I've been presented in different conferences in the US, and for example, AAAL, SLR, and also our other conference, ARA, that I have presented in, but they are mostly, they are more specific to a certain area. For example, AAAL is mostly about applied linguistics. So because my focus was mostly like on ENL students and foreign language learning teaching for my first master's degree, and when I first started to do my PhD in ETAP program, I was working with Dr. Park, and whose specialty was in bilingualism and all this kind of topics. So I did some presentation there, but then I collaborated with Dr. Jianwei Zhang and his research group, and we presented in ICLS and also ARA conference. So I co-authored some papers with the research team and also with Dr. Zhang, and I presented at ARA, and I submitted to ARA and they accepted it. And for it was 2020 that my paper was accepted to be presented as paper session, but then because of the Corona situation, the conference canceled, and they sent us an email that if you like, you can add your, you can make it as a poster online in the repository. So we have it, that everyone can have access to it. And we had submitted the paper, so they have it in the repository. And the year after, when I entered EdPsych program, but before that I was working with Dr. Moyert on a project during the summer. So we submitted that to AERA, and I presented at AERA 2021 there. And because this time it was online, so they asked everybody to create like the poster. Even those who were presenting paper or poster session, they had to put everything in the format of a poster. And now I would like to share my screen so you can see how the poster structure of the poster for AERA can be. And it has very pretty cool features to it that you can embed like videos to it. You can put pictures, everything there. So I'm going to show you. Let me share my screen in a bit. So this is the poster that I had this year on AERA. And for the system, actually, it's very flexible. So you can choose different formats, and it gives you options for editing different types of, so we can zoom in, and it's different types of features. For example, if I go to the methodology section of my paper, you can see at the end, I have also put a link to YouTube video, for example, and people can go there and watch the video. So they have a lot of good features, and you put just everything's there. You can put pictures there, everything. So it's like a real, it's like a poster, but it's in an electronic format. And actually it's much easier because you can, there is no limit in it, and you can put everything you want. But the point is that when you create a poster, it's important to make it in a way that is easy for the person who is reading your poster and looking to your poster to understand it, and at the same time to keep it as short as possible. And so it's important how you put it and how everything's look like. So basically, I just wanted to show you how the structure for the poster on AERA repository looks like. And when you go, for example, to AERA website, there is like a place that you can search the name of the author, and it pops up these posters. And you can also print the poster. You can click on print and print the poster. And yeah, so the abstract and everything you can have access to. Yeah, this is something I like to share. So let me stop sharing. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Marzi. Maybe, I mean, if it's still available, could you put a link to that? Is the AERA link still available?
Yes. Yes.
Great. And maybe just put that in the chat. And so folks, there you go. Thank you so much, Marzi. There you go. A great example of kind of the multi media event that has become postering sessions. So get your skills up, right? So we have 3 people, I think, with their hands up. Mr. Burgess, I haven't seen you in a couple of years. How you doing? What's your question?
All is well.
Good.
Good question. So if the call for submission is in line with, let's say, our pilots, we can use that?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. What Carol said.
That was it. Thanks.
Yeah. And I will offer that, you know, I can't remember the numbers now. Is it 740, the pilot presentation class? Oh, gosh, I should know this offhand, but I haven't taken it in 2 years. The one that, what is it?
778.
778, yes. There, if you have followed the curriculum for that course, you will be well prepared. You will be over prepared for writing your submission. You'll need to knock out a bunch of information because you're going to want to write too much. So keep that in mind. Rebecca, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just have a follow-up question to what Kwesi just asked. And that is, I just did my pilot, well, I'm working on the pilot still, but I would love to present, and I think I'll have a plethora of things to share by April, but I did not get IRB for this pilot. So I just want to know, is that the requirement and the caveat, just so I know ahead of time?
You know, it'll depend on where you submit, but it's not uncommon. They'll ask, do you have IRB approval?
Mhm.
Not yet, or no, or yes. So you can always do that. They say that they want finished projects.
Mhm.
Don't believe them. I mean, I have submitted a ton of stuff that was half done. And it's just a, you know, it's a real motivator to get it done
Right,
by
right.
the time the presentation happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the short answer is no, you don't have to have IRB approval, although you will have to have it by the end.
And
So- Okay.
I will also add in that, you know, this may not fit with your overall development plan within the program, but you don't have to write about a research project. Depending on where you're submitting to, you may find that there are other subjects that you're interested in academically that fit in with what your research or the general area of your interest is that you can write about. So for example, within the John Dewey SIG, there's plenty of stuff there that's not a formal research project. It's people writing about theories or potentialities or making connections with philosophies or ideas. And you may find that same thing. My first paper that I presented was a comparative study of how wisdom is achieved in Buddhism versus how wisdom is achieved through the writings of John Dewey, like how John Dewey would view the acquisition of wisdom.
Every division will have, or SIG will have a choice between a concept paper, empirical study, description, you know, documentary. You'll see in the call that all of these exist as choices.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, it's all about digging out the right SIG and making sure that you know who you're writing to. Other questions? I know
Eugene's raised his hand.
Yeah, I think he's left.
Oh yeah.
He sent me a message, so I have a feeling he's not.
Okay.
He might be just recording or something. Anyone else?
I have a question, just quick question is, maybe in the SIG, the people are more, you know, interested in, you know, specific topic of the, you know, the session. So the reviewers are also, you know, the expertise in that area. So maybe this question should go for Dr. Carol Rogers.
Is that's a question?
Yeah.
You know, take Division K, which is the biggest division in the entire organization, teaching and teacher education. It has, when I was a program chair, you know, one of the section chairs for Division K once for a couple of years. And we had 9 sections then. There are now, what, 12, I think you said, Matt. So you can get really pointed and specific with 12 sections of a division, even though it's a huge division. So you'll get a lot of people who are very interested in that pretty narrowly defined area. So when I did it, was professional development, teacher professional development in service. It's pretty specific, but you're guaranteed that everybody in that presentation is probably pretty interested in teacher professional development. A SIG, you know, is also very pointed. They're just generally smaller, so they get less funding. They have fewer presentations. They're more, some of them are more arcane. Some of them have, you know, conferences of their own, like Caribbean Studies, for example. There's a whole, you know, separate organization outside of AERA that looks at Caribbean studies. So I don't think there's a rule, Ginny, about, you know, where you'll get more informed audience members. I think it's just probably the luck of the draw. With a conference that big, you know, people will drop in, they'll leave when it doesn't suit them to be there. Yeah, that's just kind of the nature of the beast.
Yeah, in Toronto, I went to a roundtable discussion and I was the only person in the audience. So there's the 5 people on stage and me. And I at first I was kind of sitting back, and then everyone kind of like left before the thing started. So I moved right front and center, and I was 5 feet away from the people, and I was watching them have this conversation. And I ended up having like, it ended up being a conversation between me and the 5 of them. And I met a bunch of people from that who I've stayed in touch with because we have similar interests. And I was actually asked if I wanted to contribute on a chapter, which I had to turn down because I was just too busy and I didn't feel like I was knowledgeable. But you never know what's going to happen in those situations. So,
Thank you for your answers.
somebody else has a hand raised.
Eugene,
Oh, Rebecca.
Eugene's been waiting for a while.
No, Eugene, I don't think he's there. Eugene, are you there? Yeah, I think he might have left and just left his hand up.
You may have already answered this, and forgive me if I missed it, but can you apply to more than one SIG, or you can only apply to one?
Oh, you can have as many SIGs as you want. You have to pay a little bit of money, like $10 or $15 for each membership in each SIG.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So, but you can't apply with the same paper to more than one SIG.
Gotcha.
You have to have different papers.
Okay, that clarifies. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, and you can't submit more than 2 papers as single authors to AERA at all. Other questions? There's so much to talk about with this stuff, so we could,
I was just going to ask, is it quite normal to have a small audience for your first time presenting, or should you be hurt if no one's in the audience?
They don't know it's your first time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good point.
Yeah,
It seems like they're quite often like the audiences might be quite small, is it?
that could happen.
Yeah.
Look, you can, somebody who's pretty well known, a full professor could have 4 people in the audience. It's just, that's, you can't take anything personally at AERA. It's never an indication of the work that you've done, how many people show up. I've had people in a very small audience, and I said, let's drop the audience, people at a table shenanigans. Let's just make a circle and we can all present to each other. So nobody's going to say, no, you can't do that. People are pretty easygoing. I mean, even this last time when everything was online and it was just a unmitigated disaster. I mean, the technology didn't work, and it wasn't AERA's fault. It was the contractors, but the members are so nice. I mean, these are all people in education. They're really generally really nice people. And there's a lot of laughter and helping each other out and patience. And no reason to be scared of this group. They're just really good human beings for the most part.
Yeah, and I'll speak to that too, because, at the roundtable that I presented at this year in the Lives of Teachers SIG, our discussant and our chair never showed up. They just didn't show up. And so the 5 of us organized in the 5 minutes ahead of time. We realized that nobody was going to show up. And so we self-organized. And I will tell you, I was the only graduate student. It was these 4 other professors. And I, in another world, I would have let that get in my way. But I'd been through a bunch of different stuff with the AERA folks, and I knew that we all wanted the same thing. And so it was just such a tremendous experience to self-organize, to then coordinate all of that. And then we had 15 people show up. It ranged between 15 and 20, like Carol was saying. They come, they drop in, they drop out, who were watching the thing and then, asking questions later on. And it worked out really well. And it worked out well because it is really a collegial environment. It wasn't competitive. It was supportive. And it was a terrific learning experience. And in the end, when the Lives of Teachers folks discovered that their people didn't show up, they sent a note to us and they thanked us all for the work that we did, because we worked really hard to make sure that it was a substantive session for everybody. And that opportunity exists. The opportunity exists to become a part of this academic community. And how you arrive is up to you. You know, you can arrive as a timid graduate student, or you can arrive as somebody who's there to learn and there to be a part of the community. And I think that the folks that you're with, who will undoubtedly be experienced academic professionals, will appreciate you arriving, wanting to be a part of that community.
I think, you know, when it comes to 1st of April next year, we should have another session, which is getting ready for AERA, you know, navigating AERA, because it really pays to plan. As I used to say to people, fill your dance card, you know, decide about the people that you want to have dinner with, you know, go through the catalog and organize your day so you know where you're going. Everything's online now, so it's really easy. You're also in these fabulous cities like, you know, Chicago, for example, has some of the best restaurants in the world. They've got comedy clubs that are, you know, Chicago's famous for its comedy and for its local theater. It's got some of the best art museums in the world. It's got one of the most beautiful waterfronts in the world. You know, it's not all about work. It's also a chance to, you're there. I recommend going without your family. You know, go and just get away from the everyday work of being a student or being a, you know, a professional, and soak up all of this new knowledge and all that a city has to offer. It's really I used to go for, it was almost like a retreat, like a real invigorating shot in the arm to have my week at AERA. It's worth it. And think of them, it costs money, but think of it as an investment rather than an expense, because, you know, as I've said in the beginning, these relationships really pay off in the long run.
More questions? Thanks, Carol.
Sure.
I just want to share like one very like happy memory I have is, you know, sometimes depends on the schedule. So my presentation was like very the last minute. So everybody just left. But at that time, my work, I collaborated with a master student. So even doctoral student like us can also collaborate with master level student as well. And sometimes you got accepted, maybe because of a little bit luck there. But because our presentation was at the very last minute, there's not a lot of audience. So they just like 5 people. But 4 people, they were actually ETAP professors. So they came, they knew, they look at the session, and if your name came up and you're from ETAP, then the professor will show up and kind of encourage you as well. So that was really nice to have, you know, even professor coming to support you. So I agree with Matt and Professor Carol to just give it a try and really enjoy the experience.
Yeah, there's also the social events. So every SIG division has a business meeting with food and alcohol, and you know, it's really a chance to network. And every university has its own sort of reunion event. So even after you've left SUNY, it's a time to come back and see people that were in graduate school with you. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot more than just the academics.
Yeah, and I'll just third that, not even second that. I'll third that because I went in Toronto. I thought I had snuck into an ETAP presentation. And it was packed, 60, 70. I mean, the room was packed. I couldn't get a seat. I had to sit with my back against the wall, sitting on the floor at the very back of the room. And I thought I snuck in. It was Julie Learned and Laura Dacus and like 2 or 3 other people were up on stage for an ETAP. And I thought I snuck in the room, and I loved the presentation. And then I heard from some of the fellow students afterwards, and from Julie too, that they saw me come in and that they felt invigorated just to see somebody from the program there, right? Just like, oh, our people are here, you know, and it's just this supporting function that ties us all closer together and helps us see not just like, not just, oh yeah, these people in our program, but their work and what they're doing every day and why that matters to all of us in what we're trying to do as we're building our PhD credentials. So it's a chance to build our community and to be a part of something bigger than just what we're doing. Because PhD work, you guys know this. And if you don't know it yet, you will. It can be very lonely. It can be lonely. And this is one of those things that help it not be so lonely. Okay.
I miss the face-to-face gatherings.
Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. Other questions? You guys have been great staying on so long. So
Thanks very much for organizing it. It's been great.
yeah.
Yes, thank you, Matt.
Who started recording this? I want to make sure that if I stop the recording, that it'll come to me, or if it goes to somebody else, that they'll email it to me.
Adele and I might have done it simultaneously.
Cool. So if you could just make sure that it comes to me, that'd be great somehow, some form.
It'll probably go to you.
Okay. Well, yeah, because I'm the
Comes to me,
organizer, right? Yeah.
I'll send it. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much.
Have a good night.
Have a
Thanks
good
very
night.
much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much.